Hello and welcome to this week's live weekly warm-up. This week is going to be a really fun exercise. I've been doing this with a lot of my students lately, and it's been really helping with a lot of these staccato things. Because staccato is always so challenging, it's really helpful to have different kinds of exercises and different ways to go about doing it. And this is actually one of my favorites, and it worked really well for me when I struggled with staccato for many years. This was one of the exercises that helped me the most with it, actually. And it's helped a lot of my students a ton too. So I'm really excited to share it with you and give you a little bit of a different kind of staccato articulation exercise to be thinking about. So what it is basically almost like a voicing exercise. If you remember several weeks ago when we did the Steve Williamson soft attack exercise, it's very similar to that. But what we're actually going to do is just do a normal attack. It doesn't have to be soft, but we're still starting just with the air, and then we're going to practice ending with the tongue. I learned this exercise from Michael Rusenick when I was in Aspen. I think it's one of his favorite exercises for teaching articulation as well, and it's for good reason because it's a really good one. So basically what we're going to be doing is sort of articulating, and what we're going to be saying is the word heat, which is not a real word, but it's sort of a German variation. The way that I learned it was to say hoot. I don't love that one as well because oot is not quite exactly the right tongue position we want, but the German O umlaut, the ü, is a little bit better because it gets the back of our tongue a little bit higher, gets everything a little bit more forward as well, whereas oot is sort of oot, and it doesn't have the same energy and precision and focus that ü does. So instead of hoot, we're going to be saying heat, which is a really great sort of trick for voicing in general, thinking of that German O umlaut, or also the French EU, that U. So you get that back of the tongue in the E, the front of the tongue in the U. And then what we're going to do is just take any note. I'm going to go with the classic good old low C, my favorite note on the instrument, because if you can't do it on low C, then you probably can't do it on any of the other notes. And what I'm going to do is exactly just that. It's going to be sort of independent. Take a breath, start with the air, say heat, and then you're going to end up ending with the tongue. When you say that T at the end of that, it's going to be the tongue coming to the reed, ending the note. A couple things to be listening for is that the beginning of the note is extremely clear and comes out right away, right the way that you want. And then the end of the note also is really clear with no extra junk. We don't want a really aggressive tongue slamming on the reed. We don't want to be too light and sort of fuzz out the end of it. Just a really clear heat, heat. You'll hear it. Let's demonstrate. So you can hear how it's starting right away. I'm starting with the air, getting a clear start to the note only with the air. This forces you to have the right voicing and know the air pressure needed for that note. If you get something like this, where it sort of is not clear at the beginning and then comes into focus, that means that there's something going wrong with those three important things of your air, embouchure, or your tongue. Maybe your tongue is too far back or too low and you're not getting good focus from that. Maybe your embouchure is a little too tight. That's really common. We want to start a little tight and then we loosen up and release the note. Or your air pressure isn't strong enough and you try to play and realize that that's not enough air, and then you ramp up the air and finally get into the sound of the note. So those are the things to be listening to at the beginning of the note. Now at the end of the note, we want to make sure that our tongue is just coming back to the reed nice and gently, not causing any disturbances. Some issues you might hear are something like this, where the end of the note kind of distorts a little bit. That's where there's a little bit too much energy, maybe a little bit of with the air as well, where the air is sort of ramping up as the tongue goes to the reed, and then the tongue is really aggressive on the reed, and you get that that sort of slap to the end of it. We want the tongue to be quick and precise, but really light. So it's just, my tongue's not doing any crazy big motion. It's not slamming into the reed. It doesn't have to push into the reed. It just touches the reed to stop the vibration. So it's really a super simple motion. Now, that's sort of the first half of this exercise where we're getting the notes to come out with our air. We know where the air support is needed to get the note sounding great. We're ending the note very nicely. Now, the next step is to be releasing the tongue again to get the next note. So the first time I demonstrated it, and I think you should do this the first time too, totally separate notes like fresh breath, reset the embouchure, everything to just practice finding that air support to get it. And then the next step is to start chaining it together so that it's one stream of air, just like we want when we're actually playing. So now instead of going he, I'm thinking of that like ew, just continuous, the air stream's continuous, and then it sort of turns from to get that first like breath started to just that ooh is continuous. And it sounds that same way with the air. So that the air is always continuously supporting it. The note comes out right when you release your tongue from the reed, which is a really important thing to notice, is that the air, the sound comes out right when we release the tongue. The air's there, ready to play. Then when the tongue comes off, the reed can vibrate right away. That's how you get a clear, good sounding staccato, is having the air in position so that the reed starts vibrating immediately when you release it. And that's why this exercise is so powerful, because it really teaches you how to get that air in position, get it ready to go. And then it also introduces moving the tongue on and off the reed as well, which is the only other important part of articulation. So I hope that has been helpful. Feel free, even if you're watching the replay of this later, if you have any comments or questions about this, leave it in the comments and I will be happy to respond and answer your questions. I also want to tell you about one other exciting thing. If you've seen it in the description wherever you're watching this, there is a cool challenge that I'm going to be doing for the month of September. It's sort of just a way to help you all with implementing the next generation clarinet method, the version 2 that I've been talking about for a few weeks now, because I'm super excited about it and really want as many people to get it and do it as possible, because I think it's going to make a really big difference in a lot of people's playing. And during the month of September, I'm going to be doing a special challenge in the Quick Start Clarinet community Facebook group, where I'm going to sort of be helping you and encouraging you and facilitating you to actually get through the book and implement the knowledge in it. So if you want more information about that, make sure that you get into the official Quick Start Clarinet community Facebook group. There's a link for that. If you go on Facebook and just search Quick Start Clarinet community, it should come up and then you can join the group. There is a super simple yes or no question to join. Do make sure that you answer that so I know that you're a real person and you're interested in being in the clarinet community for beneficial clarinet reasons and you're not just like some spammer or scammer or whatever. So do answer the question so I know that you're a real person and you can be joined into the group. And then there will be more information posted in there about the challenge. And of course, it's going to be going through the next generation clarinet method. So it's perfect if you already have the book. It's also perfect if you've been thinking about getting it but weren't sure. You should just go get it. Go join the Facebook group, and I hope we can have a really fun and exciting challenge through the month of September. So if you have any questions about that, if you have any questions about this heat sort of staccato articulation, leave the comments and I will be happy to answer those. And thanks so much for watching this, and I'll see you next week on the next live weekly warm-up.